Welcome back, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast, the first week of the Superfan editions. That's right. My name is the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we are here with Mr. Cameron Young, the Great White Buffalo of Bigfoot investigators from the Great White North above the Canadian line. How you doing tonight there, Mr. Cameron?
I'm doing wonderful, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to do this over here like that. That didn't work out anywhere near like I wanted it to. We'll take that off of there. And we'll take that off of there. We'll take that off of there. And we'll take that. No, that didn't work out either. Well, how about this? There we go. All right.
There we go.
Yay. Took me a minute. Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking this week about quite a few things, actually. Some late developments have happened this week that have been quite interesting. Why don't you kick us off here, Cameron?
Okay. Well, earlier this week, I happened to stumble upon a video about a very rare interview that was done done, I believe, on an old CBC News radio about the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it turned out to be Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin themselves in a very rare ultra interview 6 days after the film was taken in Bluff Creek, California. And it was actually done just after they did the very first showing of the film up here in Canada at the University of Victoria, which I believe it was the University of Victoria or University of BC, one of the two, one of the big universities in British Columbia, which may be a tidbit nobody really knows, that the first actual public showing of the film was in Canada. Go figure.
Right.
So, the first video was about a new original copy of the film that was not tapered with, that was not enhanced in any form, because with the original copy of the film, after you copy it so many times, it loses its not only does it lose its value, but it also loses its color. That's why you see a lot of film grain in the copy.
You have to think about how film is actually copied in that day. There were no VCRs. There were no deck-to-deck VCR. Literally what they had to do was set up a projector on a screen and then set up another film recorder to record what was being projected on the screen. So anomalies would come up like that weird bubble in the bicep or in the quadricep,
in the leg,
in the leg, that people fought over for years. Oh, it has to be real. Look at that. That's a hernia in the leg. No, it was just a bubble in the film when they recorded it. Now we're able to take a first generation copy like that, digitize it directly from the film itself, and preserve all of that, because no matter what you do when you present that film on any type or any size of screen, it's definitely going to degrade because it was recorded in 86 by 44.
Yeah.
It was very, very small print. The prints themselves are so very tiny, but they were of higher quality. I think it was an 8mm camera, if I'm not mistaken.
8 or 16. Actually, it might have been 16.
It might have been 16. At that point, because that was always one of the debates of whether it was in 8mm or 16mm mode.
And it also depended on what, because you could change the frame of the camera. Like, that's what, we're still arguing about it today. Like, they did.
Is it 5 foot? Well, it either makes Patty 5'8" or it makes Patty 7'2".
And there was also one that was turned her to be like 9 feet tall.
Right. Yeah. Which would be, pretty much beyond what we're really kind of looking at with that. But I saw the Bigfoot Archives finally put that out, and it was up in 2800K and 4K. Yeah. Now, I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure that it's recorded in 4K, and I'm sure that's going to give you the highest definition, but you still can only record what is there initially. So if it's filmed in 29 frame, 84 by 46, no matter how much you 4K it, it's still going to be, but the pristine condition of this being a Gen 1 film actually makes it that much better than everything else that's ever been done. Because I think Bill Munns was working with like a third generation copy, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if it was a third generation.
I know it was at least a second generation copy.
But I know that Patricia Patterson, Roger Patterson's wife, gave him that film.
to use. Right. It was in
Yes.
Patricia Patterson's possession.
Yes.
Now this particular film had not been in
Yes.
her possession. This one
No.
had come from John Green's collection
Mhm. Yeah.
that he never really even talked about having.
No.
I mean, and it would have been real interesting to have this, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden now, after John Green's passing, and they've gone through all of his Bigfoot collection, now the Gen 1 copy has come about, and I'm really glad that we got a copy of it. So if you guys haven't seen that, it's out on YouTube. You can search Bigfoot Archives or 4K. Patterson-Gimlin, and it'll pop up that way.
And what the real interesting thing about this was that it actually included a ultra rare interview, like I said, and now the other day this YouTube channel released the full length of this interview, and it's about 17 minutes long, and I had to listen to it 3 times in a row. Like I could not believe that this existed. And so I sent it out to all the researchers that I talked to, and it was kind of funny. They're like, oh, yeah, we know. Pardon my language. Shit, why didn't you just send that to me earlier? That would have been real handy, But I guess it's because they actually, there was a couple guys that told me, oh, yeah, we used to go and listen to that at Renee DeHinden's place all the time.
Yeah, a lot of the old schoolers, long before the social media, they had heard a lot of that. There's an old Freeman interview out there. It's on videotape, and unfortunately there is a microphone hum that is so god awful to listen to. But if you run it through a sound processor and isolate that sound, you can actually get that way low degraded, and you can actually hear the whole interview. And I've done that a couple of times, and that's like a 3-hour interview. I mean, it really is. And he really goes through all the years of the weird things that happened to him in the forestry system. And, the biggest thing about the forestry system is people don't really realize is it's not so much that the government is trying to the governments are trying to hide Bigfoot. It's that they have no vested interest in it coming out to be real, because normally logging is like the second largest income for a country that has huge logging areas such as Canada and North America. I mean, we really were started as a logging mill for Europe because they had cut down all their damn trees. So, to take and put, the hundreds of billions and dollars of contracts in jeopardy is, it negates their good stance with those contracts to go looking for Bigfoot or to go and try and prove Bigfoot. I don't think that they're out there trying to disprove Bigfoot at the same time, but I don't think I think it's a lot like the UFOs. I think they know that there's something out there to investigate, but they'd rather not do it, because if they find out the absolute truth, well, humans are panicky, crazy animals in volume, and we know it. A person is smart and calm, but people as a whole are panicky, awful animals. And I don't know that we want a whole bunch of people running to the woods with guns to kill what's left of the Sasquatch people out there. I called them Sasquatch people. Oh my God, you people can smack me. It's okay.
In Canada, we prefer Sasquatch, actually.
In Canada, that's right.
But so I listened to this interview, and it was really. Then I got to thinking, kind of basically putting the puzzle together. Like, okay, I've talked to Bob Gimlin once 10 years ago, and my story, how I've tried to get him to interview him again.
Oh,
and how much of a fiasco that was.
You're on tonight, and let's give the people a little bit of a window into this whole handler thing with Sage Accord. Now, you just wanted to have a phone conversation with Bob Gimlin for yourself, correct?
I wanted was to have an interview with him and talk to him and just record the interview for my personal files. I told him multiple times this was not going to be put on YouTube. This was not going to be put on any social media.
There was no money-making scheme in this at all. You weren't looking to make a profit off of all of this.
No, God, no.
And what did Sage or Russell have to say about it? Yeah.
Well, he basically wanted. I think he wanted quite a good handful of money for an interview, because he's saying, "Oh, well, Bob," and I totally know now the backstory about how, and I do feel bad for Bob or Mr. Gimlin that he was not paid at the time for his that's showing these showings like in Victoria and Spokane and all that.
That was also his choice. That was also his choice.
Yeah.
He could have gone on tour with that and chose not to.
That's right. That's right. So I do feel bad in that sense.
Having a guy who wants to have a conversation with Bob Gimlin, pay hundreds of dollars to make up for that is like reparations. That's just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you weren't the one that screwed him out of money. Why should you have to pay just to have a conversation with Bob Gimlin? So, I had mentioned it on the show slightly here and there, but I just, since it happened directly to you, I mean, it's not Bob's fault. It's definitely Russell LaCourt's fault. And how many people never make it to Bob because Russell brooms them off?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not paying Bob shit to talk to him. I mean, if Bob's coming out to my conference, whatever Bob's package costs. But for me to talk to him on the telephone, and you got to go out to, what did he tell you? He had to go out to Bob's house, pick him up, drive him hundreds of miles back to Russell's house, and then drive him all the way back out to Bob's house. That's why the fee was such a request. And
I think they wanted about
you drive him down to the McDonald's.
I think he wanted about $200 American.
But you get my point. I mean, why do you got to drive him hundreds of miles to your house, Russell? You can drive him down to the McDonald's.
I do have the answer for that. It was because apparently his wife doesn't like doing interviews at the house.
That's fine, but he doesn't have to drive to Russell's house.
Yeah.
He could have driven anywhere. Could have gone to a city park. Could have gone to Steak and Shake and had a chocolate shake and had a conversation with a kid, while he was doing that. But no. Yeah. Yeah. No, Russell has to. So anyhow, if people want to know why I have turned my nose up at Sage Accord and his thermal from the exhibition Bigfoot or whatever the heck that stupid thing was, suspicious Bigfoot is what I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
Oh, it just makes you want to cry.
Well,
anyhow, right along on the better things.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I'm over it now and whatnot, and I mean, hopefully, there's a chance that once this COVID thing is done, and I can go to some conference in the States and actually talk to him or meet him or whatever. But it's not like he's getting any younger, and and I had the honor and pleasure to actually interview Peter Byrne a few months ago, and he never charged me no money. None of the guys I interviewed said charged me for money. Not a one, but Bob.
Right. Well, not Bob, Russell.
Not Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Bob has any control over what Russell does or doesn't do. I don't know.
But anyway, back to this interview. It was really cool to listen to, and I actually have it posted on my Facebook group, my research page. And so if people want to go and listen and check that out, I highly recommend it because it hasn't been released in 53 years.
Right.
And so to the public, anyways. And so I think this is absolutely a key piece of the puzzle.
I agree. Hey, why don't we take us a quick talking break here, and we will get over and do our quasi theory of the week. I picked this out, a cadoodling one. So let's take a short break here, and we will be right back.
My girlfriend wishes that I can grow a beard like Dean.
This is a true story. Back in college, I moved off campus to a 2-bedroom apartment in an old 3-flat building. My roommate, Kim, was 2 years older than me. It was a platonic relationship. She and my girlfriend were good friends. I add at this point that my roommate was definitely psychic, and I am fairly sensitive to that whole realm as well. Shortly after moving in, Kim began complaining about visits, late at night, by an evil presence. I would be asleep when the visitor showed up and didn't notice anything. It started showing up while I was awake, and I definitely could tell it was at her end of the apartment. Creepy, evil feeling. Chills up and down the spine. The usual spooky sensations. A few weeks after this started, Kim told me what she knew about this presence. It was, of course, a black magician she and I had studied under way back in old Atlantis, coming to torment us now in his astral body. He was getting even with us for turning from the dark path to white good magic and fighting him and his evil ways. I maintained a neutral attitude to this news, but I knew something nasty was afoot. A month into these shenanigans, Kim came knocking at my bedroom door around 2 a.m, wrapped in her blanket, begging to sleep on the floor next to my bed. She said the guy was somewhat afraid of me because, back on Atlantis, I had become a stronger white magician than he was a black magician. I said she could sleep on the floor and use my spare blanket too. Half an hour later, the booger showed up at the other end of my bedroom. I could see a black glowing cloud, maybe 3 feet across, hovering about 5 feet off the floor. Yes, glowing black, with dull, dark red tinges, radiating a nasty, evil feeling. Kim was sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees, with a horrified look on her face. I sat up in bed, crossed my legs in a yoga posture called Siddhasana, and began mentally repeating a Sanskrit mantra I knew, directing my attention at the cloud. I could feel it getting more pissed off, but knew it was not capable of actually hurting anyone other than scaring the bejesus out of you. It faded away quickly. It made one more minor appearance when my girlfriend came for a weekend visit. She saw it and felt it, but it was much less strong and was gone in a few seconds. I used the same treatment on it as before. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydin.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Bydin.com. Yeah, it's hard listening to your own voice when you're... All right, let's go back here. Let's take a look at who is hanging out in the live hangout with us tonight. There we go. There, we're back at it. All right, let's see here. We have Shane Barber's in the house with us tonight. Hello there, Shane, and Miss Bella Allegria. She's hanging out tonight. The Reverend Timothy McCoon is in the house. How you doing, Tim? Oh, Grasshopper et al. Hello there, Grasshopper. Christy, the sci-fi girl. Hello there, young lady. The Brown Dwarf. Greetings to you, Mr. Dwarf. That guy's a madman. He's looking for Bigfoot everywhere. Let's see here. Who else is in the house tonight? Travis Bumpy. Evening, Travis. Glad you're back with us tonight, pal. The Can Squanch. And there's our quasi-theorist himself, Mr. Dean Cooper. And the Duncans are in the house. Aaron and Mary, absolutely. We'll be going back to the 5th annual Pie Bigfoot romp. First week of August this year in the Pie Valley of California, because, well, that's the place to be.
I got to go and do one of those one of these days.
Dude, I would love to have you come down, brother. I mean, you know, Sacramento isn't really all that far of a plane trip for you.
No.
Aaron Duncan, there we go. Mr. Fang, trees in the house. Don Rife, hello there, Don Rife. Glad you are feeling better, buddy. Hope you're better in health than I am right now. Good Lord, I'm still fighting it, people. Keep sending them good prayers and juju, because I need it. It's improving, but it's not in a hurry. Prairie Fire. I always want to make that prairie, but see, there's too many R's in there. Priory Fire? I don't know. Hello. Spike Jeff, the Jeff of the Spike. There you go, Mr. Lance Windsor. He's also in the Canadian Great White North. Let's see here. Maria, I said hello to you, Miss Bella. Oh, wow. Getting down to the bottom here. If you guys haven't said hi to me, I don't know to say hi to you. Gone Trapping, hello, back at you. Obsidian Radio, there you are. You know, do I know you? No, but there you are. Just remember, folks, no matter where you are, there you are. Let's see here. And that looks to be about the end of it. Donald Fuller's in the house. Hello, Donald Fuller's in the house. Glad to make it back with you as well. That's right. The universe. Oh, the Reverend Grasshopper et al. That's right. I've been also with the Universal Life Church for a long time. All right, people. So now we are going to get back at it. So where are we at there, Cameron? Let's get into the Alaska Bigfoot stuff tonight.
So for my birthday, my mom actually got me a few books because, you know, to read. And one of them that I just started reading recently and have put a pretty good dent in is one called Raincoast Sasquatch, written by J. Robert Alley. Mm-hmm. And what it basically is the Bigfoot Sasquatch records of Southeast Alaska, coastal BC, and Northwest Washington from Puget Sound to Yakut. I'm sure I totally butchered that name. But apologies. But man, I never really thought how many sighting reports and stories have come out of Alaska. All the way to First Nations people, all the way up to modern man. And I'm looking, one of the, for example, like in the back of the book, it has these maps. I'm not sure if you can see that good or not.
Yeah, they're good.
And you can, like, a lot of these are from, older times or whatnot, but you never, like, this is Prince of Wales Island in Alaska. And I never really would have thought Alaska as being a Sasquatch hotspot, but it really is, especially this Prince of Wales Island. And one of the chapters that I'm reading right now in this book is kind of talking about the different, I don't know what the politically right term is, so I'm just going to say it, clans of people that, like your First Nations and that kind of thing. And I have found this chart, and it's all the way like the tribal group, and it has the name for each what they would call a Sasquatch,
right?
And it, on the side it has what it's known for, like killing people. There's actually like 3 of them that have it killing people, tricking people, stealing children, half human, have had half human children. They speak, and it's just an amazing chart. And I'm going to have to photocopy this for my own files. So that's the chart right there. And it just kind of shows just how many, wrong direction, just how many different, it's not just us people that are going up there. These are, people that have lived in this area for hundreds of thousands of years. And I've always known that with BC and whatnot, but I never would have thought that for Alaska.
Well, that's the thing, is most of the people from BC came in through Alaska, through the Bering Land Straits. The seal hunters would have been following along the ice bridges,
right,
and would have come down through Alaska into BC and into North America,
right.
So it makes sense that the historical track goes back that far,
right.
It's kind of the same thing on the East Coast when they look at the DNA of the tribes of the East Coast of North America. They tend to have a little bit more Middle Eastern blood line in them, in archaic lines, where the western side of the country in BC and Alaska and Northern California, Washington, Oregon, they tend to have a little more Asian background and caustic background in them. So it would depend on where they come from. But I know there's a lot of places that call them like cockle eaters.
Yeah.
And they live along the coastlines there, and they catch them out at night in the moonlight, digging out the cockles out of the shallows there, and running off into the moonlight to eat them. Which would make a lot of sense. But like here in the Sierras, here it is December, and I haven't seen a bit of rain or snow yet.
No.
But I'm an hour from the snow line. And just like Alaska, not everything is buried in a hard winter snow of 10 feet deep.
No.
So, once you get down below those snow lines to where it's, tolerable temperatures and not 10 degrees below zero, it would make a lot of sense for the animal life to still continue.
Right. And so I just wanted to show, I have a couple other points here. So these are some of the, just how special how hold these Sasquatch creatures in high regard. These are just some of their tribal masks and an actual kind of costume that they use in dance and stuff like that. Another one here, Jeff, I'm sure you've seen this one hundreds of times. This one here, this one on the left. Oh, pardon me. That's my bookmark. It's actually a little doll. And what it is the Wild Woman of the Woods. And she's carrying a basket, and it has a basket over her shoulder that apparently she's told she puts children
in. She's like She's the Krampus of the tribe.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty
Beats
much.
Him with a whip and then throws him in a basket.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's more scary, or Belschnickel from The Office, or that thing. So, and then again, some really good artistry in here as well. In this book, I've seen some of these in shows and stuff like that. And then I'm sure I did have another. Here it is right here. Another one of these masks
and they don't invest the time in making those things
No,
for no reason. I mean,
no.
there's definitely a lot of time and investment that goes along with those ceremonial masks, and they are held with very high esteem,
right,
for the people that do make them and keep them and dance with them and
yes,
and do their thing.
right. And another interesting story, I'll just quickly go through it. And it was kind of like what you were talking about, Jeff, where these fishermen and boat people are, they're fishing at night or they're looking to go park their boat. And this was a story about a Sasquatch reportedly climbing on board a boat off the Prince of Wales Island in 1951. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah,
that would apparently the boy here, he was telling the story as an adult now, but he was literally going to take a leak off the boat, and all of a sudden he drops his drawers to do his thing, and this thing is standing and looking right at him as he's trying to get on the boat. But apparently
it's like that thing in the Lake Okeechobee that was throwing poop at my boat. I'm telling you, that thing would have come at us if it would have had just a little bit more courage.
Oh yeah. I believe. What was this, like a Sasquatch creature?
Yeah, but a skunk ape.
Oh, okay. Wow. And then again, with the totem poles and masks, this one I believe is in Victoria, that statue. And this is the one that was on the cover of John Green's book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping if I ever get to Victoria, it's on display at BC Provincial Museum in Victoria. I hope I do get to see that for myself, because it's such a famous statue. But again, a lot of these, the chapter I'm reading now is kind of the old First Nations tales kind of thing. And they got everything from it being shy to literally destroying camps and attacking hunters to stealing dogs. There was a story where a trapper was camping and he was sleeping one night and he heard his dog took off, thought nothing of it. Oh, it's probably just chasing deer. Dog never came back. He tracked it and whatever, and the dog tracks just totally disappeared. And he thought the dog was literally picked up from behind and taken away by
kind of like Jesus in the sand.
Yeah,
I noticed that there were two tracks, and then I noticed there was one. I was being carried by Jesus. Sorry, hey, it's Christmas season. Why not? I mean.
Exactly. So, and it's really, and another thing that I've noticed is the First Nations groups of Alaska, they seem to have more of it being more human-like than what I've seen with kind of your area with Northern California, where I've seen it kind of be more ape-like, especially in some parts of BC.
Well, yeah, that depends upon. See, I mean, I understand the Native American tribes here.
Yeah.
I've heard hundreds of stories of Bigfoot type creatures from within my own family, and they're more of a human quality, like making choices and like attacking on purpose and those types of things. Where more contemporary stories are of the ape creature. Now in those same tribes, they've realized that there is no hairy man in the woods waiting for your old lady to walk home with the kids and snatch her away.
Right.
But there is still something out there that likes to lurk on the edge of the wood of the campfire and listen to what's going on in the area. So
right, and
so they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and the one other story in the early on was a story about Albert Osman, and who was captured or kidnapped by a family of Sasquatches. Now, I have heard that report lots of times, but never like this in this book. And near the end of the chapter, it actually kind of raised some interesting questions. Now, this is an author's sketch of what they thought Albert Osman kind of had to deal with.
Right.
And that's kind of where it was going to at the end of the story, where I kind of raised my eyebrows and went, no.
Oh, I've heard that part of the story before plenty of times. Yeah, where they were really wanting to get him to breed with the young female, and he ain't want no part of that.
No.
That's where he broke out the can of snuff and tricked them all and got daddy to take a big old.
Yeah, and I don't know if it could be true. I don't know what the Sasquatch thinks, I would have thought it wanted something more of its kind, but
Well, I mean, according to Melba, you know, the Sasquatch dudes go out and snatch a human female, and or no, the unknown monkey ape creature goes
Yeah.
out and snatches human females and makes Sasquatch creatures. You know,
Mhm.
because they're hybrids. Because
yeah.
because that's what a DNA scientist should say. All right. Oh, let's get this thing wrapped up for the night, buddy.
Sounds good. But yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely take a look more into Alaska because this book, I would definitely recommend reading this book. If you, as much I do like those stories and that kind of thing, but my research is more tended to the more modern kind of thing. But I have talked to I've talked to one First Nation guy when I was on a trip in Southern Alberta, and he told me a couple of things, and I was very, very impressed.
Well, you know, you gotta look at the contemporary versus the ancient. Ancient
Yeah.
stories still tell us the truth. They just don't tell us the whole truth. So if we take them that way, then they can lead us to a little bit more of information that we didn't have on the contemporary stuff that we are looking into. You know,
for sure.
would a Sasquatch snatch a kid? Maybe. You know, would a Sasquatch kill a person? Probably.
If you really
You know,
pissed it off.
Well, you gotta think of it like this. Just like in the chimp world, you know, there are crazy chimps, there are deranged chimps, there are emotionally depressed chimps, there are anxious chimps, there are panic chimps, there are chimps all along the autism spectrum, just like there are, you know, in humans. So if that's the case, then Bigfoot wouldn't be any different. There would definitely be some brains that needed to be, shall we say, altered, for sure. And with that, let's get this sucker wrapped up for the night, Cameron. I appreciate you coming on and talking about the Alaskan Bigfoot, man.
Everybody out there, feel free to check out my Facebook research. It's just Cameron Young's Sasquatch research page. And if you have a sighting, or if you know somebody who's had a sighting, feel free to email me at all lowercase cam.young82@gmail.com. I believe it's on this is the group here. I don't know if we can see that, but this is my official Facebook group.
There you go. That shows up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome, buddy. Well, the first edition of the Superfans went super fantastic. Yes. See how that works. Yes. And we do have a Bigfoot campfire story for y'all tonight. Join us next week when we have another Superfan edition coming up. And with that, for Cameron and myself, we want to say you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. May the Squatch be with everyone. Of course, now it does. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. These stories are based upon true events. Welcome to another Bigfoot campfire story. You know those scary movies you hear and you'll wonder if they're based on some sort of reality? Well, that's exactly what I thought when this story was told to me. Jesse and his family owned an off-grid cabin near Mount St. Helens in Washington and decided a snowy Thanksgiving is what they needed. So they loaded up with all they would need and set out for the week. This is their story. My folks and I had been coming to this cabin each winter for as long as I can remember. My dad, my mom, and my little sister Emma were on this trip, and we're all looking forward to the fun. The cabin was set up really nice. There was a huge sledding hill out back and lots of snowmobile trails to ride on. And his dad was a mechanic, so we had lots of toys out there to play with. My favorite was an old Honda 110 ATC with 3 wheels. Man, that thing was dangerous, but so much fun. Anyhow, all we had to do was bring food and get there. The rest was already in place. The drive up was about 4 hours from our town, so we made good use of it, searching for when the snowstorm would start and playing stupid car games. Dad's old Wagoneer made it there no problem, with just a couple of spots where the 4-wheel drive was needed, but we finally arrived. As usual, there was no play at first upon getting into the cabin. We had to open up the cabin, inspect it for damage, chase away any animals that might be around. Mom and Emma were opening and unloading the car, so Dad sent me around back to take the bare boards off the windows and check the roof. Well, the snow wasn't very deep yet. It was about 2 feet at this point. And I managed to get out back and get the boards down just as Dad got to the back of the house and scared the crap right out of me. Just as I took the board down, there his face was, beard and all, with a scary growl at me. Of course, I screamed like a girl. Everyone laughed at me, but I turned away just in time to catch a glimpse of what I thought was a bear. Well, I called out to my dad, and he grabbed the shotgun and came running around the back of the house. When we trudged on over in the snow to the spot, I saw it barrel down the sledding hill. When we got over there, sure enough, there were tracks going in and out of that area. It looked well traveled. We must have a new resident that thinks this is his territory. Well, we set back towards the house to warn the girls that there's a bear around and to stay close for now. We got our stuff inside, and they got the wood stove going and warming up the cabin nicely. There was a downed tree on the other side of the house, so Dad and I grabbed the saw. We went on over to cut it away and clear that area. We noticed another well-used path on this side of the house where something had been moving around and packed the trail back and forth. Well, Dad fired up the saw and made a few cuts, and I pulled the debris out of his way. It took us about an hour of sawing, but we finally got it cleared out of the way for now. Just then, I saw Dad pick up the shotgun and run forward a little bit and shot a few rounds off, too high to hit anything. I yelled out, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I saw that bear again, and I think he'll think twice about coming back around now." Well, we went inside, and just in time, as it was starting to get dusk and very cold outside. The cabin was cooking hot, and for dinner was just about ready. Mom was with it cooking on the wood stove, and beef stew was what was on it tonight. Mom will have a pot of this on the stove 24/7 till we get out of here, as it's just the best thing to warm you up. Well, we lit a few candles. We sat around the stove drinking hot chocolate, and that's when we heard the first weird call. It was like a low wail followed by a whoop. It made us all feel uneasy, as it was so loud it sounded like it was right outside the window. Dad said it had to have been a coyote, but none like we'd ever heard before. We all kind of stayed close that first night. The next morning, Dad and I went and checked on the tracks, and they were, of course, not coyotes. For the life of us, we could not find a single track or sign anywhere we looked. That's when Dad called me over to look at that pathway and these weird footprints, twice the size of his, and barefoot. No one, and I mean no one, has ever been seen out here in all the years we've been coming here, and certainly not barefoot this time of year. What would leave tracks like this? Well, I asked, "Bigfoot?" And all I got back was that all-knowing look like I'm a dumbass and should shut up, so I skulked off back to the cabin. Well, Dad sat out there for a little while, and then he came in to warm up. He went down into the cellar, and he brought up another small shotgun and handed it to me. It was time to find out what was making those tracks, he said. So we loaded up both guns and put a few extra shells in our pockets, headed out for a long hike. Dad and I had hiked around for about 2 hours. We hadn't seen a thing. Not a rabbit, not a deer, no signs of bear. None of that was normal for this time of year. Not even any rodents. We had shot squirrel for days out here in the past. Finally, Dad decided it was time to head back. Dark was coming faster than we'd like. When we got back to the cabin, we found Mom and Emma held up in the cellar. Well, Dad called down for them to come up, and they said some animals had surrounded the cabin and were whooping at them from the windows. Mom called them hairy monster people, and again I asked, "Bigfoot?" But this time I got the response I wasn't ready for when Mom actually yelled, "Yes, Bigfoot. That has to be what they were." She said they came on one at a time as if they were called here by something. The more we screamed, the louder they whooped and banged on the walls. She said they ran off just before we got here. They must have heard us coming. Well, Dad decided that was it. We are out of here. He'd come back with some family and find out just what was going on. But this was enough to put the family in danger. It was time to pack it in. Well, it was already too dark outside, and there was no way we could make it out in the dark, as the roads are just merely trails as it is. We'd have to stick it out until daybreak. Let's just hope they don't come back. Dad had Mom and Emma make it comfy down in the cellar, and they were down there reading books together, while Dad and I kept a watch out in the windows. Nothing had happened, not a sound, all night. It was getting very late. Maybe we got lucky. Well, Dad decided to take a peek outside, and he told me to stay near the door. Well, as he rounded the side of the house, that's when the very first whoop rang out again. Well, Dad quickly rang out a couple of shotgun rounds towards the sound, and then ran back into the cabin. Sure enough, it was only moments later when these other two things showed up. I could see them out the back window in the moonlight, as the moon was high and bright and reflecting off the snow. It was snowing outside now, with wet, heavy, large-sized flakes falling all around, and these two very big, dark-looking creatures made their way to the cabin on just two legs. They walked kind of strange, like they were floating on the snow, their knees never going straight. Both very tall, ducking under limbs both Dad and I passed under earlier in the day. The closer they got, the more detail you could see, and the strange sloping head, longer gangly arms that hung past the mid-thigh and down towards the middle of the waist. They took very long strides as they closed the distance, even in 3 feet of snow now, in no time, and began peering in the window at us. The faces were covered in hair except the eyes, the nose, and the lips. Very large eyes and the openings, and a dominant ridge over the eyebrows. And then I saw very, very big hands as one of them put his palm on the window and pushed off to walk away. Well, Dad whispered to me to climb down the stairs with Mom and protect them. Should they get past him, I knew what would come next, so I did as I was told. I took guard over the opening, and then I heard a slam on the front door. Whatever they were out there surely wanted in here with us. Dad started to scream at it to go away, but that just made the one at the back window start to bang on the back wall in turn, and then the one at the door bang harder and harder until finally I heard the shotgun ring out once more. Everything went silent. Dad told me to come up out of the cellar and cover the back window. If they came back, to shoot it. Well, as I got to the top of the stairs, I saw the front window was now broken in, and there was some blood on the wall. Dad must have hit at least one of them. Well, it was now getting cold in the cabin, so we stoked up the wood stove as much as we could. Finally, we noticed that the sun was rising on the horizon. We had finally survived it. Well, it seemed like it took forever for the sun to finally rise enough to see outside. And when we did, we could see a blood trail leading off from the cabin. Dad drove the goals up from the cellar, and we quickly loaded up the wagoneer, and we were on our way out. Well, it had snowed nearly 2 feet that night, and now we had to take our time going out through the trails. Every now and then we noticed the blood would cross back and forth across the road. Well, that was enough for Dad, and he picked up the pace a bit, got us down the mountain as fast but as safe as he could. Mom and Emma were very shaken, but okay in talking. Myself, I was very confused as Bigfoot was no longer a myth for our family, and Dad just quietly drove the truck. Finally, Mom asked, "What do we tell people happened?" And Dad replied, "Animal attack, and that'll be enough, or we'll be labeled crazy people, and no thanks to that." So that's how we treated it. We came home early because of an animal attack, and we didn't feel like talking about it. Most people let it drop. I remember a very short time after that, he sold that cabin, as is, where is, contents included, and someone bought it up fast. That was the last we ever saw of that place, and I can't say I'll miss it. Jesse and his family found out firsthand what happens when Bigfoot claims your property. Well, your property becomes their property, and that's just the way it is. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.